So our podcast guest today is Julien, and Julien is with Sales Fix. Julien has spent the last 20 years selling, managing, and training sales professionals. A true sales samurai, helping salespeople cut through selling obstacles with strategy and proper sales science. He's worked with many corporations on curating their customer approach and sales process to maximize sales and around complete understanding of the customer's needs. This is a quote actually from a sales professional that actually you've worked with. And one of the things he said was Julien's approach to sales is unique and highly effective. He focuses on identifying and addressing the root causes of sales challenges rather than simply treating the symptoms. He asks tough questions and provides honest feedback, which can be difficult to hear but is essential for driving growth and success. Yep. So I thought that was a nice statement.
That is a nice statement. The sales samurai thing, just to clarify, because it's it sounds a little precocious to sign yourself the title sales samurai. It comes from the book Samurai Selling by Chuck Laughlin, and the concept was there's that you're selling through service. You're not selling through. People hear samurai and I cut heads off and knock people out of your way. And in fact, right, samurai, I believe the word actually comes from service, or there's an element culturally speaking when you understand what a samurai is. He's a servant of the person. That and that was the piece of that appealed to me. So I just wanted to diffuse that little obnoxiousness that could be interpreted by I'm a sales ninja, I'm a sales samurai. Could have come up.
But anyway, I'm glad you clarified that. One of the last point I wanted to bring up was that you had a really nice statement said sales is part psychology and part math. And with a detailed plan and the right tools, you can be a top performer in sales. The best performers in any profession have a process, a system, and a practice. What they do, so when the opportunity presents themselves, their preparation carries them to success.
That's absolutely correct.
You said luck is where opportunity meets preparedness.
I didn't invent that. That's a quote from somebody else. I just don't remember who it is. But I mean, I think, if you think about the standard journey that most people have in sales, it starts with going to, they get hired in a sales job for a company. The company, trains them about HR and the CRM and spends a lot of time drilling a lot of product information. And then they send them out and say, go ahead, right? And so sales becomes this show up and throw up, right, kind of approach where you kind of track people down and then you talk about yourself. Right. And what I always tell my trainees is how well does that work in dating when you approach somebody in a bar and you just talk about yourself the whole time? Right. And it doesn't work real well. It doesn't work real well in sales for either because of the exact same reason. It's two human beings and all that psychology comes into play. Right. So you can't approach it from that perspective. And the part science is understanding the neuroscience of how humans communicate to each other. Once you have a grip on that, then you have like sort of a guideline that carries you forward. And all the great sales systems out there, because there are plenty, they teach that science. They always come up with their own particular wrinkle on how they present it. But at the end of the day, it's the good stuff is all based on this is what's going on with a human being when you approach them, right? And if you think about it, Alan, if I walk up to you on the street and you don't know me and I just approach you physically, there's immediately a 50,000 years of human evolution in the background where you're going, is this person friendly? Do they want to hurt me? Like you don't know, right? Is this a tiger jumping out of the bushes to kill me and eat me, right? That we still, as much as we think we walk around with clothes and use cutlery, humans have been civilized for a few hundred years, and that's being generous, right? And you can't imagine that all that neuroscience isn't at play. We still have a brain that very much is in survival primal mode, and if you understand that, then you can navigate around it. If you don't, you're just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping that something stick, which is really frustrating if you're trying to sell that way, right? And I went through that journey.
Well, that's how you become a leader in this field. Is that you have to go through the trials and challenges and so forth to really learn. So just jumping in and kind of things that one of the things I wanted to ask was like in the last year within your organization, what would you say have been like your greatest successes so far? Or what have you guys accomplished?
I think for me, it's always comes down to it's not we've had success when you measure them in dollars or new clients acquired or any of that. For me, though, it always comes down to the barometer that we like to measure it for us is how many people that we have changed behaviors. When my client comes back and goes, my sales team was behaving in this particular way, and now they've sustained a behavioral change where we're not spouting information. We're taking the time to understand clients. We're selling into needs, not selling into what we want to sell, right? So no more of this Q4. Hey, if you sign it before the end of December, I'm willing to give you 10% off. Like, the client doesn't care about the calendar date from their perspective. It's not, but if you lock onto the right things and you change behavior long term, and for me, the greatest successes are always when somebody that I trained reaches back out 10 months, 10 years later, something in there, and says, man, you really changed the perspective that I had of what this job was. And I was about to walk away. I was about to go, sales is not for me. And because I understood what the true nature of what it is I'm supposed to be doing, now it's a profession that I enjoy. Because I think typically you ask somebody, well, anyway, my experience is that when somebody says, what do you do? And I say, I'm in sales, I get a frown and really? What did you really want to do? Right? Like, I'm sorry that you have to resort to basically like economic prostitution in order to get yourself a paycheck. Like, you get reactions that are on that level of intensity of it. And it's like, good Lord, why are they so negative about salespeople? Well, because salespeople that are not trained provide a lot of negative experience, the quintessential car sales stereotype that you see in movies, right? Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So as far as measurement, you feel like, it's definitely, it's not necessarily like a quantifiable thing, but it's something that it gives you like a sort of a satisfaction.
Yeah, I mean, I want
difference in someone's life.
We want to make a living, right? I mean, I want to make a living. I want to have clothes on my back and food on the table. I want to provide for my family. Same thing with my two business partners. You can't pretend that the economics is not part of it, right? Yes. But the highest paid job I've ever had, which was working for a corporation, and I had what you would consider a management or leadership position, and I was there 18 months, and I was miserable. So the money by itself does not equate to success. There are plenty of people that make, a reasonable but not excessive amount of money, but they're truly happy because they feel fulfilled by their work. And I think that's tough to fake. You can't really fake that. People will sense it if you're faking that. And when you look at the business icons that people like and respect, and I'll just, take politics out of it, but like Elon Musk, for example, right? Is there any doubt in anybody's mind that Elon Musk loves what he does? I don't think so. Yeah. I think Mark Cuban, same thing, right? It's like you look at them and they're just the way they tell their story and the way they interact, you could tell they just love what they do. And I think when you can tie into those success measures, and for me, the payoff is helping people. I know that sounds really kvetchy and like BS-y, but I really don't get a bigger emotional payoff than when we see lasting change in somebody, change that leads them to success, to be able to themselves provide for their family and be successful in sales, which I think is a wonderful profession because you can go across industries and every company I know still needs good salespeople. Absolutely. So I really love the profession of sales, and unfortunately, we're right there below lawyers and politicians in terms of how, society perceives us for the most part.
Interesting. Yeah. I think that, as far as sales goes, I think what you're describing is becoming more adopted by salespeople because they understand what was used before in the past really doesn't, work in today's world.
No,
it's just people are too savvy to what's going on,
and they have access to so much information, right? If you think about it, Alan, if you call on me with XYZ Corporation and I just Google your name and XYZ Corporation, I'm going to get your LinkedIn profile. I'm going to get so much information, right? Absolutely. And in the past, salespeople were the guardians, the gatekeepers of product information. So if you wanted to find out about AC systems, you had to talk to an AC salesperson. That was really the only way. Well, the last 20, 25 years has completely changed that, right? The advance of the internet and everything else. And now everybody with a Google search can be somewhat proficient all the way to an expert on a subject matter in a very little bit amount of time. Yeah. So you have to connect on a different level than just by, withholding information in exchange for commitment, which I think is the classic 1950s, 1960s sales model, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, do you have a main goal of your company? Like that you're striving towards, you and your partners? Do you have certain measures of success or something?
Yeah. I'm gonna borrow. There's a great sales leader and author called Dave Mattson, and he tells a story. He wrote a fantastic book called The Sandler Rules, and he tells the story about when he was working for David Sandler, who's the one who came up with the Sandler sales system. That David Sandler, whenever they were getting close to their goal, David Sandler would pick up the flag and throw it even further, right? And there was this initial moment of, oh man, we were about to kind of like hit this, right? And then you throw it further. And I think that's how my partners and I treat the business. So we have goals every year that we're trying to make. Some of it's really frustrating. Like when we set a revenue goal, we will map out every year like what clients we think are going to bring in what. And so far, the last 6 years, there isn't a year where we're close to 50% accurate, right? When I look at the beginning of the year, who I think are going to be the clients that bring in the money, it ends up being about a 40% accuracy rate, and all this money came from clients that I never even knew were out there. So you still have to make the plan because you still have to be proactive in how you're trying to map this out, but then you have to be able to adjust in midair. And I think good goals have some sort of flexibility to them, but I do think it's important to write down goals. So we will map out a revenue or a head count, like a client count goal, right? Sometimes it's like, hey, this year we need to move up our average billing rate by 10%. And that means that our cheapest paying clients, no matter how much we love them, are going to have to take a little bit of a price hike, or as we sign new people, we raise the prices because you manage that supply and demand. Now, that said, when the pandemic hit, I did 3 to 4 months of work pro bono. I helped a lot of clients and didn't charge them anything for it. And yeah, I was being nice, but I was also building a lot of relationships and trust that I knew that I believed would pay off down the line.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So it was the same thing. So you adjust to the plan, but yeah, the goals typically revolve around something like we want our billing rate to be this much, we want our billable hours to go up by that much, we want this number of clients, and I mean ultimately it comes back down to what money are we going to bring in this year, right? I mean it always comes back down to that number.
How did you mentioned that like when you thought you identified the companies that you think your revenue is going to come from, and identified kind of your ideal customer profile. These are the people you want to work with, and then how did you find the clients and customers that came to fill in the gap?
I mean, the reality is that as much as we think we execute the plan executes us a little bit, and what I mean by that is it really comes so. What I think, one of the things that I think we've always done right is when we paint our client profile, we don't paint our ideal client profile based on the size of the company or this or that. We paint it based on the pain. We are looking for companies that are running into this problem and frustrated with these challenges.
Sure.
Right? Because two things are going to come from that: budget and interest. So they're going to say, we need to solve the sales growth problem this year. We need to solve the high turnover rate this year. We need to solve these things. And we need to solve them. And if we can just say that is our client profile, I don't care what industry, I don't care. I am looking for people that have these sets of problems. And then I'm going to reach out in a mission to connect with and find and just have conversations with people that have these sets of problems. Then your prospecting really follows whatever you need to do to be able to reach those people. Sometimes it's cold outreach. Sometimes it's, more what I would call sniper marketing, where you lock onto somebody on LinkedIn. I will tell you, my number one source of finding clients with a sales problem is bad sales pitches aimed at me. I get emails that come in and I'm like, this is such a disaster. In fact, on LinkedIn, I've started reviewing those emails and editing them. I take the names off because I don't want to hurt people's feelings, right? But and then when I reach out to a CEO or SVP of sales and I go, are you aware that this is what your salespeople are sending out? And usually they go, oh, they grab their head and they're like, are you kidding me? Right? It's like, that's something we might be able to. So we lock on to the challenges that they're facing and say, we're going to be we know we're good at solving those problems. Our mission is to sort the people from the list that don't have those problems and identify those. And then the rest of it comes from network, connecting, cold outreach, warm outreach, introductions, requesting referrals, which a lot of salespeople, the last stat I saw on this is that 91% of people are willing to give referrals if you're asked, and only 10 to 11% of salespeople bother to ask for referrals, right? So just if you look at the gap between those two numbers, huge, right? But the plan comes not from, I need to find people and convince them of my product. I have a pill that solves headache. I need to find people that have headaches. Where are they hanging out? What are they talking about? Who are they mingling with? How do I get inside that conversation? That's the prospecting plan.
Do you feel like you have within your organization like enough of a pipeline of potential sales to sort of scale your business or grow your business in a way that you want to reach, or do you have it?
Yeah, I mean, I never feel like I have a big enough pipeline, right? Because as much as you can guess how good your pipeline is, you just don't know. Mm-hmm. Hence that 40% comment I was making. We look and we go, okay, who are existing customers? Who are the customers that typically this time of year we're going to talk to, the ones that we think are back to having the problems that they were having before, blah, 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 blah. And mm-hmm. we're guesstimating is the right thing, right? So I always want more meetings, but there's a trap in there, which is, if you're not careful, you fill up your times with worthless meetings, right?
Well, so that's the key, right? Is really exactly. Identifying is this person or company, is this prospect somebody? Do they fit your, like that ICP, your profile for the ideal customer that's going to, have the ability, have the pain points,
yeah,
but also have the ability to, put a budget together. Plan, take on your process or whatever process can work for them.
Yeah. And so what you're hitting on there, Alan, is that prospecting is actually a disqualification exercise, not a qualification exercise. So the analogy I use with a lot of my salespeople is, imagine I give you a large bucket and it's filled with jelly beans of multiple different colors, and I say, pull out all the red ones. Yes. I know that 80% of the jelly beans in there are not red. Yeah. Okay? So the game becomes, how quickly can I sort out the red ones so I can spend time having conversations with those and mm-hmm. not focused on the green, yellow, black, blue ones, right? Those are the ones that I...
Do you have a process to do that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we ask the right questions up front, right? We validate, mm-hmm. we come in, the approach, the correct prospecting approach is always one of qualification, right? So, hey, Alan, I help people with such and such. If you're running into some of those things, it might make sense for us to chat. If you're not, just let me know.
Yeah.
Right? And the hard copyist for closers, always be closing crowd goes, no, that's not the way you're doing. You're letting him off the hook. Well, you can waste time trying to sell size 8 shoes to a guy who's got size 10 feet. I don't have time for that, right? So I would much rather have fewer meetings, but have them be more qualified on the front end. And that's a challenge for everybody right now, because prospects don't always reveal the truth. Signs aren't always accurate. The longer you're in the game at whatever it is you're doing, the more your nose starts to tell you, there's actually something going on here that I need to dig deeper, versus your nose telling you, no, I don't want a piece of this. This is not going to go anywhere, right? So
it doesn't add up. Yeah.
Yep.
So how do you guys embrace, as far as like bringing new technology into your organization to help streamline some of these processes?
Yeah, the focus we have is always be open to new technology and figure it out, right? The first time somebody said, so I send out a weekly sales newsletter, mm-hmm. and the first time somebody says, oh, you should use ChatGPT to write that, I'm like, nah, I'm not. I'm an old guy. I'm not cheating, right? It's not me if it's ChatGPT. But when I now understand, like, okay, what if I roll in and have ChatGPT write me a draft and look mm-hmm. and pull up the information that would take me longer, right? ChatGPT, tell me the different conversion percentage between this and blah, blah, blah. I use it as a research tool, and then I have it write me a draft, and then I edit the draft. So it's still my work, right? But it hasn't been betrayed. So I think it's all about using the stuff intelligently, because I see a lot of people put a lot of programs together and goes, that's I mean, there was a TV commercial a long time ago. I'm dating myself. But it was 2 scientists in a dark room with candles, and they're going through it, and one guy's demonstrating this thing, and it turns out that it's Thomas Edison, and he's showing an older guy, like, look, and then it makes a light, right? It makes a light bulb. And they look at each other, and it was a Bud Light commercial, and the older guy, I think it's Ben Franklin, looks at him or somebody like that and goes, well, that's great, Thomas, but I wanted a Bud Light, right? So what we do is we overcomplicate things so much, and I don't need the toy for the sake of the toy. I want something that's effective, right? So I deal with some clients, and they're like, well, we're using mailers, and we should be doing something else, but we convert so well on mailers that it's hard to I'm like, if you're converting well on mailers and it's working, why are you changing it up? Go focus on something that's not working and change that up. You don't need to, So do mailers work? No, for the most part, people don't open them. Like, we know that. Do cold emails just work? Depends how well they're phrased, but typically no, right?
Yeah.
But the technology is also a hamper. I don't know about you, but I get at least I have a WhatsApp and a Telegram account, and between the two of them, I get at least 10 or 12 messages a day of somebody pretending to know me. Hey, what's this number in my phone? I don't know who you are. And I'm like, please, So they can become incredibly distractors and time wasters if you just embrace technology for technology's sake. If you say, I think it helps to be specific in the same way that I would expect my prospect to be specific. We feel we have a gap in this area. What technology can we use that can help us fill the gap in that area?
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Right? Start with the mission oriented of what you're trying to do versus saying, because I see companies going, we need to roll in more AI. What does that mean? What does that actually mean?
AI is only a tool because it's the human element that actually really can take it.
And if you were advising me to lose weight and I said to you, well, I guess I just need to exercise more, you would probably say, well, hang on a second. What kind of exercise? How often? Let's get specific about what it is that you're going. And what's the mission? Is the mission to become like an MMA fighter, or is the mission to lose 10 pounds? Because that's a different routine that you need to do to be able to do those two things, right? So mission centric, where you start with the mission, and then from there you figure out what technology you can leverage to get you there, and you do the research based on that. Otherwise, I feel, at least, and maybe again showing my age, right? I'm in my mid 50s, but I feel like it just becomes oversaturation. There's so much coming at you that you're like, how many logins and passwords can I possibly be expected to have, right? So it ends up being too much,
Yeah. It's crazy, the snowball, because I come from the earlier generation too. It's just like how this all evolved and where we are today is like unimaginable, right? It's just like, could you even, like, when the first flip phones or this or that?
I remember my mother opening up her first email account, and it was an AOL email account. That's how old we're talking about, right? Okay. And she opened up her first AOL email account, and I remember her still looking at me, well, are these people going to expect that I'm going to answer them right away? And I'm like, yeah, Mom, that's the whole purpose of email. Like, you don't write a letter and it doesn't take like a week to get there. Like, it's essentially like a phone, but and then even the functionality. She was like, well, how do I know that it got sent? Well, Mom, when you drop that letter in the mailbox, how do you know that it got sent? At some point, there's a leap of faith that the technology is working, right? So, but that's exactly it. Like, you shake your comfort zone up too much, and whatever you gain from the technology, you're going to lose from productivity, right? And time wasting. So, and time is the one commodity that I think we have to defend above all others, because it's the only one we can't make more of, right? I know that's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, because it's darn true, right?
Yeah. But time is an interesting thing. Like, it's like one of the things is with technology used correctly, that it can, because of the capabilities now with artificial intelligence, is that it's able to do things at warp speed, has the information coming from everywhere that a human being would just take a week to do. That could take minutes, right?
The efficiency of it.
So it's kind of like, it's how it's harnessed, I think, is a key, and having the right people that are running, the AI programming and the special workflows and things like that.
Yeah,
so it's kind of like it's becoming. I think it's inevitable, right? It's just this is the pathway that's going to happen. So I think it just depends on the organization, like if they can adopt and adapt, quickly. It's just like, it's how can it fit in, like you said, if you have the structure you want it to fill, and then how does it get properly implemented and give you the results you're looking for.
Well, and then that implementation piece you just mentioned is so key, right? Because if it's more work to use the simplifying technology, then then you defeated the whole purpose of the thing. So, for example, the social media company that we use to help kind of just manage our information flow, and we don't do a ton of it, right? But every solution I looked at, I had to go open up a Hootsuite account, I had to go this, and I did all these things, right? And I had a guy who cold called us and said, I approach it from the perspective of I want you to not add any work to your plate. And you typically are going to do pretty well in whatever it is you're selling if you simplify people's lives. That's typically going to be a really good angle, right? So I have one platform. I don't need to log in because he emails me a link once a week and says, review the content, approve, don't approve, ask for a change, right? It's just click and point. I'm done. And then he sends me once a week the schedule. Now he could, and a lot of companies would say, hey, you can log in and see the schedule, right? And it's over here. Now you've added something to my plate instead of taking something away. If I have to log in and check a whole bunch of things, you haven't really solved the time issue for me, right? But if he proactively says, I'm going to make it so easy for you. You see this in recruiting a lot, right? We're going to put the candidates up in front of you. We're proactively going to reach out and go, here's the top 3 candidates based on what we saw, right? There's we've worked with companies like ZipRecruiter to train their people, and I've been impressed with the technology the last time I was in their office of some of the things that they're doing. Go, man, this would have been great the last time I was a sales manager and hiring and firing to have access to these kinds of tools. Well, they're proactively reaching out, right? Take away the password, take away the having to check, take away one more thing to do. Everybody's busy. If your technology simplifies my life, I'm already interested. If it's like, hey, you can get a 10% net gain improvement, but you got to add all this work over here, most people are not going to go for that business value prop, right? They're going to go, too much work. Too much work. Not interested.
No, that's true. So as far as within your own organization, there's a quote let me think where I can find that. I just had a podcast the other night, and it was he said, capitalize on the future while managing the challenges of today. And I think that's, I think it's a kind of a
good way to frame it.
Right?
Yep.
So for Sales Fix, your company, how does this apply? What opportunities lie ahead for yourself and your team? That would be my first question. And then my second question is what challenges of today does the Sales Fix face? So
I think we face a lot of the same challenges as everybody else, which is standing out above the noise. Okay, there's just so much noise right now. So a technique where say 10 years ago, I could have picked up the phone and called 100 people and probably connected and had a conversation with between 10 and 12 of them. That number today is probably 1 to 3 of them, right? First of all, there's a bunch of them that work from home. They're not even in an office, so there isn't even an office to drop by or call and pick the receptionist's brain for information, right? Which was one of the classic techniques I used when I was growing up in sales, was call the gatekeeper. Don't try to get them to pass on. To interrogate the gatekeeper, you can get a lot of intelligence as to what's going on in the company, right? One of the tricks I used to love to do was to go to the biggest gatekeeper I could find. So I'd call the CEO's office, and I'd say, Bob would answer the phone, and they'd say, Alan Wagner's office, and I'd say, hey, listen, Bob, I need some help. I know this is not something that Alan wants to look at, trying to figure out who the right person to talk to. Can you? And I would switch them into air traffic controller mode, where they'd be like, okay, well, my job is to keep him away from Alan. So now they're going to give me a bunch of information of everything I need so that I can go be somebody else's problem, right? It was a really effective technique. Well, good luck doing that now, right? Because there isn't one person in the office that everybody knows, because not everybody's in the same office in a lot of these companies anymore, right? So this is, I think, what becomes more and more of a challenge. So standing out above the noise, being able to find modern ways to connect to people where you're not being annoying. And then there's just so much more variety of things that people are doing. I have always believed that if everybody's doing one thing, try to figure out a way to spin it and make it differently, right? So this is something, when my wife and I walk into a movie theater, most movie theaters, you go through a set of double doors and then you can go right or left, depending on which side of the movie theater you want to access, right? And I've noticed for a long time that the crowd has a tendency to all go in the same direction, right? If the people follow the person in front of them, literally, right? And so everybody's going to the right. I'll tug on my wife's arm and she's like, why are we going this way? And in her mind, what she's saying is, everybody's going the other way. Why aren't we going that way, right?
Now, feeling that herd mentality.
It's just kind of like, we must be doing something wrong if we're not following the crowd. I have a contrarian personality, so to me, it's like, if the crowd's going right, I'm going left, right? And guess what? You go left and you go, we can find much better seats because everybody's fighting for seats from the right aisle and I'm fighting for seats from the left aisle, right? So it's how do you keep that going? And it's more and more challenging to do that. because there's more and more AI automated scripts that do this and AI automated scripts that do that. And then, again, even the WhatsApp or the stuff that I talked about, it used to be like there was a period of time where if you texted, you had really good success because not a lot of people texted. Now they have bots that are sending out thousands of texts, right? There was a time where there was no junk mail in LinkedIn. There literally wasn't. I mean, it was like a pure source of, if you messaged people, it felt like you'd gone around the gatekeeper and you were talking right to the person, right? And LinkedIn has become more, it's still better than a lot of stuff out there, but it's become a little bit more challenging to get past the noise. So I think the key from my perspective, the key challenge that I think we face and I think everybody is going to face is how do you differentiate yourself from the noise? Because the noise is just there and growing progressively louder as it goes on, right? Just very, very challenging to continue to do that. And, technology in some cases can help with that. And in other cases, it doesn't. I mean, most of our prospecting right now, it's so silly, but it's actually just catching up with people. Let's say you and I worked, I trained you as a sales rep at a company 3 years ago, and I see on LinkedIn that you are now at a different company and you got a promotion. I'll send you a quick, hey, congratulations. I see that you got a promotion. Tell me about what you're doing. And I don't say, hey, you guys looking for sales training? I don't get eager beaver on them, right? Just catch up. And naturally speaking, if you do enough of those, you'll get enough conversations organically that start. I'm lucky is that we don't look for volume, right? So it probably would have to take a different approach if I needed 60 meetings a week or 60 meetings a month even. But when I get lead companies that reach out to us and say, hey, I can get you 100 meetings a month, I'm like, that is terrifying to me. 100 meetings a month, where am I going to find the time to get that going? I'd rather you send me 4 really good quality meetings a month than 100, right? I don't want 100. I couldn't handle 100. And there wouldn't be quality inside the 100 piece, right? So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I think you have you've had years to sort of develop and create your business, and you've been successful to this point, and it seems like that you'll find a way to embrace what you need to embrace with technology, and then also sort of find other ways to get a more human touch to it.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I mean, leverage it again, right? I leverage ChatGPT for this. There's another thing that I leverage to understand a little bit more of the information. There's a fantastic service, and I'm blanking on the name of it, but that you can buy, and based on the post that a person tells you has up online, based on what they publicize, it gives you a quick snapshot diagnosis of what kind of communicator they are. Are they a data-driven or a people-driven communicator? Are they a fast, impulsive, give them the summary, or are they a detail-oriented person? And it's like, man, I mean, the amount of time that saves me to leverage that so I can
utilize that for if you have let's say a sales meeting coming up and you're going to be talking to the corporate leader of a certain company, and you're just kind of going, okay, I would like to get a deeper understanding of their psychology and kind of how can I best communicate with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll use it. I'll even use it if I'm going to prospect somebody. So, for example, I get a bad email coming in from XYZ Corporation, and I'm like, clearly there's some prospecting challenges and some sales skills challenges in this organization, right? Sure. I look up that you, Alan Wagner, are the SVP of sales for the company, right? Yeah. So now I'm going to send you a message on LinkedIn. And I'm going to poke you a little bit because I'm going to say, hey, Alan, like the quality of your guys' and it's a little bit suspect, right? Yeah. So if I can, I'm blanking because, senior moment, I'm blanking on the name. Otherwise, I would absolutely endorse them because they're great. But if I can, Crystal Knows, I think is Crystal or Crystal Knows or something like that. So if I put you through that tool, it'll tell me, Alan likes direct summary points, communicate quickly. If it tells me the opposite, I'm going to send you a much longer message with a much longer detail. I'm going to probably be softer about it, right? Hey, a lot of leaders have a hard time keeping up with the day-to-day of their sales training and keeping their reps where they need to be, but I'm going to soften it up much more than if it says this person likes it blunt and direct, right? So, and back in the day, you'd have salespeople that would misread that and actually in the room, and you'd be like, dude, get to the point. Can you not tell this person is direct and blunt? So yeah, that's a great leverage of tool, right? Vidyard or Loom, also fantastic tools. to leverage and attach videos and embed videos and messages. There's all kinds of technology out there that's super useful. But I don't say, oh, from now on I need to do at least 5 looms a day, because that's me working for the tool, not the tool working for me. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow. Well, this has been really a nice conversation. Just, it's clear to me that you've found a way to make sales a way of life, and and just the way you approach it. It's not like you're just 9 to 5 job. You're clicking in and you're trying to make as big a paycheck as you can type thing. It's more to build a full satisfying life. And so I think I was
lucky enough at some point in my life to get laid off 3 times in 18 months. And that was a little bit of a parable moment where all of a sudden I looked up and I realized and I remembered that my dad had worked for a company for almost 30 years back in the 80s and 90s. Like, he had worked from them from like 70s, 80s, and 90s. And that when they got bought out, they laid off, a whole bunch of people, and his 30 years of service meant nothing, right? And so I spun out very quickly of following the corporate ladder, but more importantly, like, doing something that I didn't want to do. We weren't diagnosed with ADHD when I was growing up. It didn't exist as a diagnosis, right? But looking back now, it's like I probably have it, right? And if I'm not interested, I'm not going to be able to apply myself to it. I don't have the time for. Fortunately for me, I'm interested in people. So say, I start conversations. Much to my wife's annoyance, I start conversations in elevators, right? So it's one of those things where, because I'm interested in people and there's a passion there, I can apply myself to the pursuit of understanding people, right? So the worst advice we tell kids is do something that you love. It's not that. Do something that you're good at. Because naturally there's an amount of interest in that subject. That's why you're good at it. And then you learn to enjoy what you're doing. Love your hobby. And if you can get yourself to love your job, awesome. But what you need to do is at least enjoy your job. And so do something that you're good at, because we tend to, you ask people, what sport did you do? And if you track it back enough, it's like, well, listen, I sucked at baseball. So I started playing basketball and I was good at it. So I enjoyed it. Now I love basketball. Well, yeah, of course, right? You locked into something that you could see some success at, right? And so... not saying that you can't be, but if you're 5'4", basketball might not be the pursuit that is naturally inclined.
There's only a handful of 5'4" basketball players.
Exactly, right? Compared to the huge amount of 5'4" wrestlers that are out there that do really well, right? So it's one of those things in terms of locking that in. But yeah, it's interesting to look at it from the perspective of understand that if you have some natural skill or inclination towards something, that actually reflects a subconscious interest in that subject matter, and you should pursue that, right? That when I advise college kids, that's what I tell them. Yeah, we all love fishing, right? But the guy who's naturally good at fishing and has good instincts is going to be able to build a profession around it much more than the fact that you love it, but it's not necessarily something that you have innate or natural or skills or tendencies towards.
True. Good point. Quick question. Are you practicing martial artist also?
I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I did a lot of martial arts on and off growing up. I did a lot of martial arts on and off growing up, and then I took a long hiatus. And about 6 years ago, I left a company that had me traveling like 40 weeks out of the year, and all of a sudden I was home. And through a friend's recommendation, I started all over. So I had done different martial arts. I'd never done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I went back to pure white belt, walked in the door, acted like I didn't know anything from anything, and it has turned into a hobby that I really love. I'm not that good at it. I'm just a purple belt after 6 years. So a lot of people, and I'm not competing. I'm not doing any of that stuff. But I really like the mental calmness that comes from it, right? When you're engaged in a bout with somebody, even if it's somebody you're friendly with and they're not trying to hurt you, your primal brain kicks in and goes, blank out all the noise because the person across there is trying to strangle you, right? So it quiets all the voices, and it gives me sort of a meditative peace. And I also love the people involved in the sport. It's just one of those things that there's very few jerks at the jiu-jitsu gym that I go to. I'm sure there's plenty of jerks in jiu-jitsu, but percentage-wise, if as soon as you get good at that art, it's a humbling experience. I do a little. I'm off right now because of a shoulder injury unrelated to jiu-jitsu. So it didn't happen at jiu-jitsu, but I injured my shoulder pretty bad. So I'm taking a little bit of a hiatus right now. But I'll still go in and kind of watch the classes and learn from there because it just gives me a nice break, and I get to bro out with all my jiu-jitsu bros, right? So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Well, Julien, it's been a pleasure meeting you and a pleasure learning about your business and Sales Fix, and wish you the very best moving forward. Hopefully we'll catch up down the road and kind of go from there.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.